Paranoia is in boom. The PR transmissions will assume we'll try to push drugs to keep us all dumbed down and hope that they will never see the truth around. Another promise, another scene, another package lie to keep us trapped in greed. Another green bells wrapped around our minds, an endless red tape to keep the truth confined. They will not force us. They will stop degrading us. They will not control us. We will be victorious.
Hello, everybody. I have missed you guys so freaking much. So it's been almost 2 months, which is insanity. It's been over 8 years I've done a show, and I've never gone more than like a week without doing one. It just kind of all happened at once. A lot of you guys aren't on my Facebook. I've been kind of private about it otherwise, but my mom went in the hospital for 2 months and finally got out last week. And I've been staying with her, taking care of her. Now I'm home for just a night so I can kind of decompress. I needed an emergency surgery on my left kidney. And I also just finished writing a 560-page book. So, yeah, it's been a little chaotic, but I'm back. So tonight is officially my first show back. So you're stuck with me now. So I've missed you guys so much. And yay, now you get to put up with me again. So what better way to do my comeback than to have two of my favorite people in one of the most important stories I've ever covered and continue to cover. Tonight, we welcome back Jami and Christina from the East Palestine crew. Jami was the first person I met in East Palestine, and Christina also just became a very close friend. And when we talk on the phone, it's usually like 2-3 hours. But a lot's been going on. A lot of people think, well, it happened a while ago. They're probably good now, things like that. But in actuality, it's been, 2 years and 4 months. And things have only gotten worse, essentially. And a lot of people are still just kind of, pretending these issues don't exist. However, the past few days, some really crazy information has been coming out via whistleblowers. And they're things that a lot of us kind of knew and expected, but they're things that now we have tangible proof. Jami, do you want to kind of touch on, some of the things that are that have come out in the past few days?
Sure. One of the big things that came out was the memo that was written to all of our area physicians from the CDC. And it was telling doctors not to test us for vinyl chloride and not to treat us for chemical diagnoses. So that was kind of shocking to a lot of the community. Although, Christina, we knew that, 5 months in? We had a recording of my brother going into the doctor's office asking to be tested for vinyl chloride and them saying, no, the CDC said we can't test you for vinyl chloride. There was also some FEMA emails that came out in a FOIA request. And what happened was President Biden had put out an executive order where he assigned this FEMA guy, McPherson, to come in and assess the needs of East Palestine residents. Yet he never talked to residents. So what these emails revealed is McPherson saying that he was getting a lot of contact from the vocal locals. Not the worst thing I've been called, Joy.
Yeah.
and that they wanted to meet with him, and he was being told directly not to meet with residents. They also talk about how they're going to track the cancer clusters in the future, which, we're still being told everything's fine, nothing to see here. So those are kind of the couple of big things. The other thing is we finally found some lawyers to fight for us, and they're going for justice, not just for money.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to clarify, who was it that told this guy not to pursue this? Was it Biden and his administration?
It was the EPA. There was another one too. Christina might understand it a little bit better, but I guess they broke standard protocol and put the federal EPA in charge of the PR for the derailment. And there was some question as to why. They wanted to control the narrative. So that also came out too.
The McPherson thing, that's what you were speaking about with the who told him not to talk to us?
Yeah.
I think that was the state of Ohio.
Oh, was it? I can go double check
That's
while we're
what
on.
I recall. There might have been more than just them, but I do recall state of Ohio being definitely named in that. But then the website was the PR thing, like control what goes out on social media, and they weren't supposed to give permission to somebody to log in to edit the website, and then they broke the protocol, and somebody else even brought it up, we're not supposed to do this, it will break protocol. And so from what I gathered from the emails is that they did give the permission to the person to edit the website, to keep from, they said that it was to protect from what was being misinformation online.
Yeah. So it's interesting too because we know at first I think it was the first month. I want to say his name was Dr. Wang from the CDC came and he said we cannot treat you now, but we know how to treat the cancer when you get it, essentially. And people didn't make nearly enough of a big deal about that. I mean, we did, but
Right. That was actually about 6 months in. Initially, when Biden ordered the EPA, FEMA, and CDC to go door to door, the CDC went door to door for a half a day, and they all got sick and left, and never told anyone until it came out through a FOIA request. And that's when the residents, we started demanding to speak to the CDC again. And it was about 6 months later when he came in and told us that.
Now, also, I do want to give a shout out to Government Accountability Project. If you guys don't follow them, our girl Lacey, especially, they do incredible work. They've been around for, I believe, almost 40 years. They've helped Snowden, and they have done a lot of the whistleblowing regarding EP. They represent me, they represent Scott Smith, and a bunch of other people. And they're just incredible. They are passionate. It's not just a job for them, and they also develop relationships with all of us as well, which is so important. So shout out to them. So one of my favorite people, Mark Durno. If you guys haven't heard the conversation with Mark and I, Christina's in the room as well. Ohio is a one-party consent state, so I recorded him for an hour and a half, and he didn't know. He was the head of the East Palestine EPA. And let's just say he says some pretty jacked up shit on there. And I have it on my channel, so you can see that as well. But he has since gotten a desk job. So how has that been going? Like, what's his replacement like? What's he, what is there any kind of difference whatsoever?
For me, there has really been, like, because I was used to talking to Mark, but the new people don't really communicate with them much, which is what I expected because, we've had a lot of questioning of everything, and you kind of build up who you feel comfortable talking to. And these new people, you don't even know them. So how can you really like feel comfortable at this point after everything that we've read and everything we've gone through and stuff? How can you talk to them? And they're, to me, they seem more standoffish. Um, I still do talk to Mark sometimes, but definitely not as much. From what he's told me, he's really busy. And so I don't know. I really don't hear from them all that much anymore. I don't know if Jami does.
I never talked to the EPA. I did early on, but once I learned that all they did was spit lies, I can't just sit there and smile. I have a temper. So I just quit dealing with the EPA altogether. Is Joy still here, Christina, or are we just taking over?
It still says we're in there, so I don't know.
So I guess we're still live. We can talk about the lawsuit going on in East Palestine right now and how the administrators of the funds for the class action were just removed, and they put on a new administrator for the class action. People weren't getting their money. Paperwork is messed up. There were people that were kind of pushed into taking the class action. And now people are kind of seeing with a lot of this stuff coming out that maybe the attorneys were crooked too. And not just, our government.
Yeah, I've seen how like a lot of stuff that's been online has been like, oh, they said they didn't get my paperwork. They said they didn't get my ID. They said this or that, and that was the old administrator. I've also started to see it in other groups now too, where so it's not just in East Palestine. It's this whole area that was included in that.
And the new administrators that the judge appointed have an F rating on the Better Business Bureau's website. And they also are involved in like 3 current lawsuits, some of it for keeping the interest from other class action settlements. So it's been interesting to see kind of a shift in attitudes with other residents in the town, because we are still very divided. The nothing to see here that's just pushed the economy and the people that are sick. So I think there's been a little shift in attitudes.
Yeah, there's more people, seeming like they're talking now too, that the settlement administrator was removed and replaced. It seems like they don't really know what to think anymore. Like, this could go well, it could go bad. Kind of split again.
Right. And the health impacts, I think a lot more people are starting to change their attitude because they're seeing more and more health impacts within the community. And I think, even like I said before, like if you're a naysayer and you're like, oh, everything's fine, nothing to see here. Eventually, if you get sick, you're going to question that in the back of your head. No matter what you believe, if you come down with cancer, it's in the back of your head. Like, was this from the chemicals? Wasn't this from the chemicals? So I think a lot of people are starting to shift their attitudes. And I know just overall, like when we ran an ad in the newspaper for Dr. Gollum's study, she's from UCSD and she studied our Gulf War vets. She's doing a study on East Palestine residents now. So we put an ad in the newspaper and I had 17 people in 2 days contact me with illnesses. And a lot of them are the same. Like we see trends, like there's a lot of neuropathy, a lot of thyroid issues, cancers, heart attacks. This isn't just a coincidence. Teeth falling out. There you go. It's just for you, Joy.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah, we can't see you.
What is going on?
Lost you or not, so we just kept talking.
Yeah, I know. Good. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Apparently, I'm a blue square now. I guess this is what happens when I haven't used my my platform for a little. But yeah, I mean, you guys are totally right. And the medical needs are getting even worse. I keep, updating with you guys, and it's absolutely awful. Christina, I watched the show you sent me this morning a link
Yeah,
to. And you were talking about, I believe it was Lori's husband.
yeah, a little bit. I'm
Yeah,
not names,
can you
but
give an update on that?
um, yeah, we've been hearing from people about more cancers that people are getting, and somebody brought up to me earlier about, well, what uh actual evidence do you have of this? And I said to them, you have to go talk to the people, because the
Right.
people don't, I mean, they go to their doctor and the doctors have the knowledge or whatever, but like they have it on their records, but people aren't going to the government agencies and reporting their cancers. They're not going to the doctors and
Right, right,
write this down for the train derailment, because nobody has listened to us. And from
right.
what we learned from talking with other communities, is there were these health monitoring things set up for other communities that they want to do here, and they've never heard from the government after their community, you know, what happened in their community. They never heard from them.
Mhm.
And a recent community I started talking to, they've been told too that, oh, your cancers don't come from this, your sicknesses don't come from this, but they all have the same things going on, and they've kept track of it themselves.
And that's also for my chemically impacted communities coalition. I recently traveled to Conyers, Georgia, where
Right.
a biolab facility exploded, and they didn't get much media because it happened at the same time the hurricanes hit the Carolinas, and they had this plume that just sat over them. This manufacturer made swimming pool chemicals, so they were seeing all the same symptoms. Most recently, when I went down to support them, I had a woman come up to me and she's like, people are telling me that I'm crazy and I know that my eyes aren't right. This has affected my eyes. She's like, it's almost like, and I said, you have like a slime in your eyes? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's what we're seeing in East Palestine. All the same symptoms. When I went to Moss Landing, California, there was an energy plant there, Vistra, that stored energy in these lithium batteries, and it caught on fire. And I'm like, when I went out there, I introduced myself as the girl that always says the same thing happened in East Palestine on your Facebook page.
Right.
You probably
Right.
get tired of hearing it, but it's the same exact thing. Both
Yeah.
communities, same illnesses, being told the same thing and being gaslit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christina, we were talking about 3 Mile Island. That's right by my house. And they're gonna reopen that, which is
Yeah,
freaking insane.
I heard some things from them about they still haven't cleaned up all the radioactive soil from there. Um, and I've also talked to somebody else who works in hazmat who has said the same thing. Um, and he also brought up somewhere in New York, um, with the Manhattan a lot of stuff happens with the places that were used for the Manhattan Project. They're just left to forget about. We've seen like the same illnesses with people we've talked to in Times Beach, Missouri.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Same thing with uh, Mile Island, a lot of the same symptoms, and that was, I
Yeah.
mean, that was radiation, but that's how your body responds.
And Jamie, you've been actually communicating with people from India, correct?
Yeah, I got asked to speak up in Washington, D.C. on a panel with the women of Bhopal, India. And again, shame on me, I'd never heard of the Bhopal incident, but it was their 40-year anniversary. Um,
Wow.
and with their chemical, was a carbon. Sorry, my dog's going off. The factory that blew up over there, the chemical factory, it killed like 8,000 people instantly. People were running to the hospital, and as they were running, they were inhaling more and more of the chemicals, dropping over dead, having like spontaneous abortions right on the sidewalk. And what happened was right after the disaster, the chemical plant sold to Dow Chemicals. And Dow Chemicals said, we absorb their assets, but not their liabilities. So it's been 40 years, and they just removed some of the contamination from the actual building. But sitting next to this woman who was 4 years old when it happened, I just like kept thinking about my daughter. She's still going to be fighting 40 years later. They talked about things like people having to drop out of school to take care of their sick parents. Stuff I didn't think of. And, the other thing, not only do we need healthcare in East Palestine that covers environmental doctors, but we need some kind of fund for when people die.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until I lost somebody recently, that it's expensive to bury someone. And that's what, we're starting to see. And speaking of, Bhopal, how I was connecting that is we're still contaminated. In East Palestine, the wetlands, they just put out an article today. They're still going into the creeks. And it's like, is that going to be us 40 years from now? But those women from Bhopal are badasses. They are definitely flames, not flowers. And they haven't stopped. And it just gives you that will to keep going.
One thing that I would say about what Jami said, with forget or didn't even know what Bhopal was before this, is like that's what happens. Is like Times Beach, Missouri was around 45 years ago or so, and Love Canal was that long ago. The incident at 3 Mile Island was that long ago, and people have forgotten because people stopped talking. And at the beginning of this, well, near the beginning, maybe a year after, I was told by a person that was involved with Love Canal that until if people stop talking about this, be forgotten, because people have stopped talking about those other things and they were forgotten. At the start of this, I didn't know what Times Beach was. I heard of it, but never knew what happened. I never knew what happened at Love Canal. 3
They
Mile.
don't teach it to you in school.
No.
I learned about in high school, but that was because it was here in PA, probably. But never had I even heard of Bhopal, India. So, I mean, if people stop talking about it, it just gets forgotten, and these things shouldn't ever be forgotten.
Absolutely. And I think, and even as a journalist, I mean, I started covering EP the day it happened. And, of course, I've covered Flint a million times, things like that. And I did actually hear about Nepal. And like I said, I'm by 3 Mile Island, but I never heard of Love Canal. I never heard of Times Beach. I've never heard of these things until interacting with you guys. And it's like, these things, it's like, it's not sexy anymore because it's not on the front page. But I think that's one of the things about East Palestine that people have to acknowledge. It's not just the train derailment. Yes, that was over 2 years ago, but the after effects, the ramifications, the health, the lack of monetary compensation, I mean, the list goes on. And that is something that there is no time limit on. You guys have been through hell, just absolute hell. And I don't know, like, where do things stand now? Where, obviously you guys are still being active. Christina, are you still going in the waters?
No, I haven't been in there since February.
Good.
I just talked to the people who I did testing with before, and we're talking about going in August to do more testing. But I told them the last time I can't go because I get sick every time I go. It's really hard not to do it because I feel like it's my thing to do. but it's really hard, trying to say I can't do it and following through with that. I actually had uh, the last mayor of Times Beach tell me to quit going in the creeks. um, and asked recently again, have you stopped going in the creeks? And I was like, yeah, so far I've not been in there since February. So
Yeah. What about you, Jamie?
I don't go in the creeks.
Well, no, I
I
know.
would say we each have our own little niche in this that we
Yeah,
do. I'm more of the loudmouth. Christina does the creeks, and she's more of the can sit with somebody she doesn't like and talk and not turn red and start
right.
yelling.
Yeah.
But my mom is so sick. She went on vacation, felt fine, came back. Like, it really scares me.
Yeah.
How sick she's become, and my stepdad, we can't get him out of there. But I'll tell you, like, when you talk about the news leaving you, something that a lot of people don't know right now is that Norfolk Southern is pulling out of a lot of the promises that they made to make it right. They're not doing the training center anymore. They pulled like $3 million from the park budget. Our school district just sued them because they had promised to put in a health and wellness center. And now that the media is gone, they're pulling all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that I see with the mutual aid. Like, at first, we had so much water, we didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And now, over 2 years out, we need water just as bad as we did day one.
I know.
But we're not getting any water, and we all know the price of food is going up. So it's getting harder and harder to sustain that lifestyle of, cooking, drinking with bottled water. So it's just, I feel like we're asking the same questions now that we did day one.
Yeah.
We're finally starting to expose some of these government agencies for the pieces of crap they are. But now
Yeah.
what's going to be done? Like,
Right.
this is all fine and dandy, but what do we do now? People keep trying to make this political. Oh, well, this was under the Biden administration and now Trump. Nobody's done anything. JD Vance was down here, I was updating his staff once a week. We were taking him to the creeks. We went to see him 4 times in DC. He had his new state director come to my mom's house from Columbus and talk to me for 2 hours to update him on East Palestine. He came into East Palestine. He didn't meet with us this time. The people that rode with him the whole way to the White House, he met with our lion ass mayor, Trent Conaway. And all the cherry picked people that are focusing on the economy. And when he was asked, now that you're vice president, are you going to declare a disaster in East Palestine? JD Vance had actually written a letter to Biden asking him to do it. And his answer was, oh, it's 18 months later. I don't think we need it now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, talk to the people. So this isn't Republicans. This isn't Democrats. They've all screwed us. And they'll all screw you too. The lies, the betrayal, like, don't think that your community is any better or that this couldn't happen to you, because they're going to treat you the same way that they're treating us. Sick children, and we're being ignored.
Absolutely. And I've been covering this for like 2.5 years. I've been, friends with you guys just almost as long. And, something that I've never become desensitized to is the hubris of these corporations. Like, when you break this down and you're saying, okay, no fucks given, as I call it, no forks, now I sound like Scott, Norfolk Southern. They, a bajillion dollar company, right? And they had the ability to say, you know what, we fucked up. We are going to buy out all of your homes. Would it suck? Absolutely, because most of you guys have been there for generations. But if they did that, it would have cost a fraction of the money, and it would have gotten you guys out, and you wouldn't have been having these health effects. It would have been the easiest, most cost effective, most the best for their PR. I mean, and instead they did a vent and burn, and
that they didn't need to do.
Right. Right. And your mayor, Trent Conway, made the statement that he would do it again, if it were even knowing what he knows now. And, you look at all this and you're just like, oh my God, people like Chrissy have been begging for a house for how long? You've got people who are just suffering so bad, and they've had their house on the market for months. Nobody's going to buy it. And then if somebody would buy it, you have a conscience and you're like, oh my God, I can't let somebody move in that house. They're going to get sick. So you are left just with this never ending pile of lawsuits and debt.
Well, that's, Joy, that's another thing they did when the media was here. Right after the derailment, the houses in East Palestine were actually selling for above market value. And when I started looking on our auditor's website page, they were selling to a bunch of LLCs. So it was all over the news. Oh, these houses in East Palestine are selling for above market value. Well, now that the media's gone, they're gone. You see all over the news, $610 million class action, biggest one in history. People like me would have gotten $0.
Yeah.
It was within the 1 to 2 mile zone. They kind of like did a tier, depending on how far you're away. 1 to 2 mile zone, which is where I am, the max you could get is $70,000 per household. So for my household of 4, that's $17,500 each. But they were going to deduct all the money that they paid us to stay in a hotel and Airbnbs. So we would have gotten $0. And to kind of put that in perspective, the News Nation reporter that got tackled by the Ohio Army Reserves, or
Right.
He got tackled, whatever. He got $80,000 for getting tackled. And we're getting $70,000 max for being poisoned. So it's not what it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and take out lawyer fees on top of that. Like, seriously.
Well, the lawyers got $180 million off the top.
Right.
And they've all but fled the scene and left people here trying to get money and they wanted us to sign up, not even knowing what we were going to get. Yeah. Like,
absolutely.
And now that there are some people who got something, some people are getting a problem with the Kroll settlement administrator. Was some people got more than they were supposed to, and then some people got less than they were supposed to, and a lot of people haven't gotten anything.
Right. And then it's my understanding that if they were sent more than they should have received, and we're not talking millions of dollars here, we're talking like, a few bucks or whatever, that they're going to have to send that back.
No.
They're going after Kroll, the administrators, for it.
Okay.
But yet those of us that were, one of the big contentions about this class action was, people that were relocated want to double dip into this money. They got these reimbursements. Why shouldn't that come out of their money? And, my point is, what if you were told your whole $70,000 had to go to hotel rooms? Yeah. It couldn't go to making your house safer. It couldn't go to getting your family out. It couldn't go to nothing but hotel bills. Like, that's not fair. And again,
the fact of the matter is, like, let's be like real about this shit. No, Norfolk Southern already claimed this shit on their taxes. They already got benefits for being so kind in giving people hotels. They already got the fucking benefits for doing it. So to have you guys pay for it that's what's double dipping, not you guys.
They got more money in insurance payouts than they've spent in East Palestine.
No question.
And one other thing, these class action attorneys had a town hall where they told residents 0 cases of cancer and 0 long-term health issues. They had this toxicologist on there from, I think, the University of Cincinnati. But if you looked him up on LinkedIn, he worked for Dow Chemicals, Exxon, Chevron, and a couple other energy companies. And those were our attorneys that had this person tell us this. As soon as I said, why is Norfolk Southern trying to settle? Like, we're still being exposed. The research studies aren't back. And NTSB hearings haven't happened yet. And the attorney told me, stop right there. I'm not listening to your conspiracy theories. Norfolk Southern attorneys have your best interest at heart. I knew right there we were screwed.
Yep.
And it really seems like these attorneys, I mean, they got their 180 million and they dipped out. 180 million, but yet 120 million was the pot of money for a 10-mile radius for the chemical exposure / personal injury. You know, if that puts that into perspective a little bit, we didn't get jack shit, nothing.
Yep. And also for people who haven't seen my other shows on EP, you know, they had a max of personal injury that you could claim, and it would go by distance from the train tracks, etc. And when you would sign that, if you would agree to it and sign that, you would then no longer be able to sue for the rest of your life for any further health issues you may have, any kind of complications. You sign that paper, you're done. You get that. I believe it was up to 25,000. Is that correct?
Well, what they did is, this is what's weird about it. When they first started the class action, the attorneys would not take personal injury at all. They would only take property. Then all of a sudden, here comes this little side deal where at first we were told it was either like approximately or an average of $10,000. And then what happened was there was a certain number of people that had to sign up for that side agreement or they would pull it, you know, which makes sense. It was a big pot of money, 120 million. So if only one person filed, they're not going to give the whole 20 million. There was a number that was kind of that tipping point. So they didn't reach that number. So then all of a sudden they hired a PR firm, and that's when they did that town hall. And that's when they changed the wording from, an average of 10,000 to up to 25,000. And they made people think that they were getting more money, but that pot of 120 million never changed. You know, it just went from an average of to up to. So it was all a play with words. You know, they basically lied to people to get them to sign up for this personal injury settlement. And a lot of people are pissed now. I tried to tell them before.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And, I know you even held Zooms and stuff because I would go in them trying to explain things about the lawsuit. And, the verbiage they used in this shit is like they wanted people to be confused. There is absolutely no question. It was
and
insane.
then they bullied you. If you said you wanted to opt out, well, you're going to have $1 million to fight this on your own. And this is the most money you're ever going to get. And you're never going to prove these illnesses are from the derailment. Like they actually got like nasty and pushy with people. Not one person I've talked to said, I took this because it was an amazing deal. Not one person.
Sure.
And for the settlement, I sat there and I didn't take the personal injury part, but I sat there and they told me, well, why won't you take the personal injury? And I said, well, because I don't know. There's nobody in the world who knows enough about multiple chemical exposure. Well, we have this person who says that there will be no long-term health effects. And I said, well, from who I've talked to, there's nobody in the world that knows that. So I won't take it. And so he was like, okay, fine. That's your choice. Are you going to take it for your child? And I said, well, how's he supposed to sign for it? Well, you'll have to hold his hand. And I said, no. Like my child was 4 years old when this happened. He has until he's at least 20 because of a statute of limitations. And there could be a lot of research that comes out between now and then. So I didn't take anything for him.
Well, even the memo just came out a couple days ago that says there's going to be long-term health effects.
Right.
And I wasn't willing to gamble on that.
No.
Well, anybody that asks you to take your 4-year-old's hand and sign anything, like it's just, I don't know. It's crazy.
Absolute insanity. So what is next? What's going on? Like, even without, because I know lawsuits are, private, and I've talked about to a few people behind the scenes and stuff, so I'm not sure what you can and can't share. But what is happening now, since there's a change of people in charge, and the some monies were not given, some were given less, everything like that. What's kind of the status of everything?
They hired a new administrator. They ousted this cruel that was screwing everything up and taking money. But the new administrator has an F rating on Better Business Bureau and like 3 outstanding lawsuits against them. Those of us that opted out, and maybe even some other people, have pursued legal action through someone I feel wants justice and accountability and not just money. Like, they filed against the EPA, they filed against the CDC, FEMA, the village, the school, because every one of them, every level of government betrayed us. And that's what we wanted. The class action only went after Norfolk Southern. And the way I explain it is like your husband cheats on you. Norfolk Southern's the other woman. You know what they're in it for? They're in it for a profit, and that's it. Our government is your husband. They owe you a duty. They're supposed to protect you. So in some ways, I'm more pissed off at them than I am at Norfolk Southern. So this new law firm is a trial firm. They believe in, that our criminal justice system is for the people, by the people. You go in front of a jury of your peers, and not just have the judge and the lawyers make settlement deals that no one even knows is happening. So I feel like we finally have found someone that's going to fight for us, fight for justice and accountability the way we have been doing since day one.
I actually didn't know it was a trial. That is phenomenal. That is amazing. Because you have a much better chance at appealing to people and being able to tell them the reality of what's going on than risking the fact that it's up to one person and they're being bribed.
Right. And when they approved that final settlement up in Youngstown that day, it was back in September. I was there, and you could just tell by the judge's attitude towards the attorney that was making arguments that we were lied to, blah, blah, blah. She was just real like abrasive towards him and real like ass kissing to the attorneys of the class action Norfolk Southern. And she didn't even take a minute to decide. She just automatically was like, yeah, we're approving it. And as I was walking out the door, I wasn't standing there yelling. I wasn't screaming or making a scene. I said, this whole lawsuit is a sham. Our own attorneys lied to us, as I was walking out the door. So I get downstairs in front of the courthouse, and a journalist that became a friend said, did you hear what she said when you walked out? And I was like, no. Apparently she told her federal marshals to put me on the pavement, and then stood up and kind of put her fist down on her little, whatever it's called, and said, now does anyone else want to question me in this courtroom? And it kind of summarized the entire thing. They didn't want to hear from us. The attorneys wouldn't even take evidence that we had. What's that tell you about these attorneys? And put me on the pavement? Like, she didn't say, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court. She didn't say, get out of here. She immediately went to her federal marshals putting me on the pavement.
Oh my God, that's disgusting. That's something we've seen since day one. It is the lack of empathy is unreal. I mean, Jami, you yourself has said many, many times to people, what if it was your kid? What if these were your children? I mean, that is such a basic question, but they cannot comprehend. They cannot possibly, they are so freaking entitled. They cannot possibly comprehend the fact that this would happen to them. Because, from the get, it has been EP is kind of a low income type place. If this happens somewhere like in a, like in a rich area, it would have been squashed within an hour like nothing would have happened. And, you know, rural areas, they are dismissing you guys still.
I've
What?
even been to my representative locally, like my state representative here, and I've had conversations with him, and he he lives in this area. He was in the Plume area. Him and his several children that he has, I don't even know how many. So this happened to them, and yet he's done nothing to help anyone.
Not even a bottle of water from our government, not even a bottle of water.
And his kids still sit here too.
Wow. And you know, it's I would love to see his donors. That really intrigues me, because I gotta wonder if like NTSB or someone like that is donating to him.
Well,
Because
Norfolk Southern donates to all of them up on the hill.
yeah,
I think they said between, this was a long time ago, I saw this report, between the time of the derailment in February and that June, Norfolk Southern had donated $1.6 million up on the hill. And that's
wow.
just in a few months. And that's the problem is, like, I always knew our government was controlled by money, but I didn't think it was to the extent that they would let our children die.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty bought off. And, you know,
Yeah.
if someone doesn't believe that we're sick, doesn't believe that our kids are sick, come on down. There's plenty of empty houses that we can let you stay in, you know, and see for yourself. Like you said, if you're so sure that we're okay, bring your kids down to spend the night with my daughter or Christina's son.
Yep.
They won't do it.
No, absolutely not. Because I've been there 4 times, and yeah, I'm still gonna come. I'm not gonna stop going.
Erin Brockovich won't. She came and got sick
Yeah.
and she won't come back.
Yep.
So if that tells you anything, and it's this long-term stuff that's starting to hit us now. The symptoms
Yeah.
were bad enough, you know, but, you know, dealing with bloody noses and rashes, and that was bad enough. But now, you know, I've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. I've been diagnosed with periodontal disease that I didn't have zero signs of 4 years ago. I have
Wow.
been diagnosed with an adult chronic cough, and I have to go get a CT scan on my lungs. I now have asthma. You know, I'm old and fat, but I've always been old and fat. I'm a country girl. I'd hike 2 miles back the tracks to, you know, a fishing spot and never lose my breath. Now I walk to the car and I lose my breath. And it's not just me. You know, when 100 other people are diagnosed with asthma, it's not just me. Um,
Yeah.
it's
How,
just, and it's all things we've seen in the Gulf War. Um,
yeah.
so
How are your mom and Daryl? Like I didn't realize they were so sick.
my mom has been sick since the derailment, and it's weird. She just called me right before the show, and you know, she has this cough that just hasn't went away. And
Yeah.
she just got her CT back of her lungs, and they say nothing's wrong with her.
Oh
You
God.
know, but yet she has this terrible, horrible cough. She gets dizzy. She gets slime on her eyes. She shakes. She can hardly walk now. And, you know, yeah, she's 70, but she always took care of foster kids, you know, up and right. She still does. But when I knew she was really sick was when she had dishes in her sink overnight, because even though she always had a, you know, ton of kids, her house was always immaculate. Now she can't hardly walk to the stove. Um,
Wow. 70 is actually really young. Like really young. Um, I mean, my parents are 84, so 70 is definitely young. What about Daryl?
Darren's
Or
back's
Darren?
all messed up. He can hardly walk. When he
Oh,
leaves town, he's fine. And when he comes back into town, it swells up.
oh my
So,
God.
you know, he's having a lot of issues with that. The nausea still comes and goes. A lot of it depends on the weather.
Yeah. Christina, how's your dad?
Um, he has things that he's concerned. He gets a lot of vertigo. Vertigo is almost a thing every week with him.
Oh
Like
my God.
he has a hard time, like when he gets like that, he has to basically lay down and get air from his, I think it's a BPAP machine, B or C, but he has to lay down and get air. He'll be out of it, out of doing anything for the rest of the day. He has to have help getting from the toilet to the bathroom, and he's going to be embarrassed that I say some of these things, but I think people should know.
Just tell him it's me. He's fine.
I mean,
like it's joy. It's only joy. Just it's fine.
I mean, I try and tell him, it's stuff that people do need to know about. Still, he's like a lot of the men around here. And I think in general, men don't like to share things that are going on with them. But he just had. It really started like we've been getting a lot of the wildfire smoke here, and I think that adds to some of our problems that we are already having.
Wow, yeah.
We seem immune compromised now. But he started again with diarrhea, and a lot of people around here are having that. And then along with him having it, I was in the hospital a few weeks before with vomiting and diarrhea around like basically about the same time. And but he gets a lot of his problem is vertigo. He's also got some things on his back that look like a skin cancer that he's needing to get checked out.
Well, and tell her about his toes and my mom's toes.
Some people are having like the foot gets cramped up like around where the tendon is and in the arch of your foot, I think, right, Jamie? And
almost like Charlie horses in the arch of your foot.
And your feet will either your toes either curl up or they like spread apart, like kind of like that. And that's happened a lot. And swelling in the feet. I think I've heard some people saying too in their hands. But the vertigo I've heard a lot of people talking about lately.
Wow. That is off. I had that once and it was hell. Wow.
Yeah. I usually have to like help support him to get around the house to where he can sit or lay down when he gets like that.
Well, and I also want to stress to people, Christina, you're actually in Pennsylvania. You're 5.8 miles, right, from the site. So I mean, I've done shows where when I've been in EP where I've like straddled the line where I'm like, this foot's in Pennsylvania and this is in Ohio. Like it borders on each other. So she's 5.8 miles away in Pennsylvania, but you can see her photos the night of the derailment and you just stand on her porch and all you see is a fiery explosion. That's how far it went. So there are plenty of people who are, Jami was right up in it. But there definitely are people. I mean, I think it said, wasn't it 12 states plus Canada?
16.
Oh
16.
My God.
I'll send you when we get off here, Joy. I started like a file folder that's public that I put some of the research into, including that. Dr. Gollum finished her case study, which is just of one resident. She's still working on the bigger study, but it's titled Echoes of Gulf War Illness. Dr. Walton's report in there talks about the vapor intrusion into our municipal building. When we were asking for indoor air testing and all the residents were saying there's vapor intrusion and the EPA saying, oh, it's unlikely, we're not going to test. We found out that our municipal building had kind of like a bundle of pipes that came up through the floor and that it led directly into the tunnel underneath of the building where if people don't know, the creeks flow under some of the buildings in town. And the gases were building up and they were coming up into the building. I just went to the council meeting maybe a month or two ago and confronted Mayor Conaway about it. And he said, do we have to tell you every time we do maintenance on our municipal building? Well,
Oh,
no, but when you have vapor intrusion and your whole community is trying to get our homes tested, saying that there's vapor intrusion, yeah, you probably should have told us. So the video
wow.
of that's in there, and also in Dr. Walton's report, they never cleaned our schools properly before they sent our kids back in.
Oh my
So a lot of
God.
interesting research. There's research studies on our dogs, and a lot of information in there. So I'll share it with you, and you can share it with anybody you want.
Awesome. Yeah. And Christina, I was actually going to ask that as well. How are all your cats? Are they still getting sick or how are they?
um, our cats right now are fine, very fine. They had a baby boom this year. Um, so a lot of cats were born and they seem like they're okay right now. But that's what happened the last time is they would survive for a few months and then they all disappeared.
Right.
And some of them, you know, well, I guess last year that it was like all the babies died. Um, but they're doing okay this year so far. Our chickens, they seem like they're doing all right so far this year. Um, we've had though, and it's really strange because I was talking to somebody else from another community about this online recently. With the chicken eggs, they call them fairy eggs, and
Yeah,
they're
they're
very tiny.
disgusting. They're
They're very,
terrifying.
and they don't really feel like the really little ones. Like I have some that are like the size of a pebble, and they feel like there's nothing in them. And then there's ones that they're only like this big, if people can tell. Um, but they feel like they might have uh stuff in there, but they like they don't ever hatch. We did have one chicken that was sitting on eggs earlier this year, and there was a possum that attacked her, but she's okay. Um, but all the babies that she was laying on, they got so far and they all died. There was 10 of them, I think. There was 8 to 10 of them. And all of them died, which is the same thing that's been happening. And one time I tried to hatch them with an incubator. That was the year of the derailment. They all died. This year, she did it and they all died. So
Oh,
she was at the end of like when they were supposed to be hatching when she was attacked by this possum. Um, but these fairy eggs, I started getting a lot of fairy eggs now that they're laying more eggs again. They stopped laying eggs for a long time after the derailment, and then this other person that I was talking to, she had posted. She's from another chemically impacted community, and she was posting that she gets a lot of fairy eggs, and so
wow.
we wonder if it has something to do with the what the chickens have been exposed to as well.
Right. Wow. What do you want to leave the audience with? What do you want people to take away from the show about East Palestine, about your fight, about what you'd like them to share with other people? Any kind of message you want to leave with them?
I just want people to know that we're not okay here. That the level of betrayal that we've seen from our government. I was very much a believer, and if the EPA says it's fine, it's fine, until I actually had to deal with the EPA. And I really, really wish that I would have paid attention to the things around me and to these other chemical disasters. You see it on TV and it's almost like, they're okay, the EPA is there, or, a couple little chemicals until you're living in it. And like I said, they're not going to treat you any different than they treat us. It's not a Republican Democrat issue. It's our entire government that has screwed us. So, if you can speak up for us, just create awareness and let people know that we're still here and we're still suffering and our kids are still suffering.
Absolutely. And Christina.
Well, to add to what Jamie was just saying there at the end, like as well, because I mean, there's other communities that we know now that have gone through things in the past. And if you're in a community that we don't know about yet, reach out to us because we do want to learn from you as well. And we want to help you have a voice again, too, because we know that it's more than just us. We know that it's more than just Love Canal or Times Beach, the big name ones, but there's a lot of affected communities. And we want to hear your stories too.
We
And
have to come together.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's the only way we're ever going to fight.
if you end up being affected like we never thought that we would be, you're always free to reach out to us too.
Yeah, and even if, you have a certain kind of plant, that you think could be toxic and you've seen, employees there be kind of lax or something like
Yeah.
that. Even that way, we can be on top of it and perhaps even be preventative. But the
That's
more
exactly,
Mhm.
sorry, Joy. That's exactly what Chemically Impacted Communities Coalition is. It has three purposes: preventative, because there's a lot of stuff that we learned from our own disaster, and I'm sure other communities have, that we could go into communities and be like, hey, if you have this toxic chemical plant, make sure you have an emergency evacuation plan.
Yeah.
The second part of it is to be a resource. When this happened to us, we had no clue where to go. We didn't know about nonprofits and all this, which universities did research. So we want to put together the resources from all the communities, and help people. And the third part of that is systemic change. Like I was saying, Christina said, it's bigger than East Palestine, bigger than Bhopal, Conyers, Moss Landing. If we're going to fight these big corporations, these corporate polluters, we're going to have to all come together from all different communities, all different walks of life, and we're going to have to fight this.
And as
Absolutely.
well, if you are a worker somewhere
Yep.
and you are afraid to say anything within your workplace, you can always go to the Government Accountability Project as well.
Yeah.
They will keep you anonymous if you feel more comfortable reaching out to other communities members that have gone through things like this. You can talk to us. There's people anonymous that we keep anonymous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can always reach out, to GAP or to us. So
Absolutely. Well, you guys, thank you so, so much for joining. You are welcome anytime. Please give Stella, Darren, and my little sweet pea girl my love, and Christina, your dad, and my little Eddie buddy, give them my love as well. Christina knows I am trying to get a trip going to get up there. I miss you guys so much. And it will happen. I can't say when, but I'm riding Scott's ass. Like, when are you going? Pick me up. That kind of thing.
Right.
But thank you guys so, so much. I always think of you, and you are welcome anytime.
Thank you for staying on it, Joy.
yep, thank you.
Always.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching, guys. Smash like and subscribe. Also, please look into East Palestine more. Like we were saying, it is definitely not over. Yeah, I mean, I have tons of shows on it as well if you want to look back and learn more information about it, and also see my shows that with Government Accountability Project and the reason they represent me as a whistleblower. So thank you guys so much. I've missed you so beyond words. Tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. I will be back for this week's news. Much love.